And it looks like we're starting. We're going to start off in the Cap Kingdom, and it's pretty straightforward. All you got to do is climb up to the top of this hat tower and beat the bunny brutal at the top, the boss. His name's Topper, and it's a pretty cool fight. It's pretty simple. And we might also see some early kind of differences in what the players decide to do here with the movement options. And for any new viewers to the tournament, the yellow sparks you're seeing off of Mario indicate that we're moving at the fastest speed possible, and that's only possible to get quickly and consistently with the motion controls. And both players are coming up to what is called the Frog Room, I guess, where we take our first capture. The whole gimmick of this game is Mario throws his hat at his enemies and gets to take over them with kind of mind control and use their abilities. The Frog's ability is jumping super, super high. And after this room, we're going to go up to the hill area leading up to the boss fight, and there are lots of places to bonk, as we just saw from MrMeanMoustache, and plenty more along the path that he's taking. And you'll notice that both players took the right path going up to the boss fight. And there are a lot of coins to get up that hill while you're rolling up it. And that's pretty important because there are 2 moons that we buy from shops. And they are about 100 coins each. They're exactly 100 coins each. So players will need 100 coins by the time they get to Wood Kingdom, and another 100 by the time they get to Snow Kingdom. Right now, MrMeanMoustache and LaurieDeBeaver are coming up to Cascade Kingdom, and we have a pretty cool skip here after getting this first moon with the Chain Chomp. We actually capture a dinosaur and have him jump, put his left foot on a little trampoline under some blocks that we break. And we get to jump super high and leave the dinosaur, and then dive onto the boss platform, which triggers the cutscene for the boss and starts the fight immediately, without having to go through the rest of the level. And MrMeanMoustache is coming up to the dinosaur that we were talking about just now, and we'll see if he gets it first try. It is can be inconsistent at times, and that looks like it's good. Let's see if LaurieDeBeaver has the same luck. And it looks like we're gonna have to recapture the T-Rex. That is a bit of a time loss. And MrMeanMoustache going for the fast strats in his brutal fight here. You can actually backflip onto that golden chain chomp while it's being thrown at you to stun it, so you can recapture it. Usually you're not able to throw your hat at it and get it kind of captured at that point while it's spinning like that. We need 5 moons to get out of this kingdom, and we got one in the beginning, got 3 from the boss fight, and now Mr. Mean Mustache is about to get the last one to get out. And after Cascade Kingdom, we're going to go up to Sand Kingdom, and we might see some different routes depending on what the players are comfortable with and what they can do, what they feel they can do consistently. There are a few different routes that have been kind of what we've been doing as runners since the game's release. It's been changing a lot. So we'll see what these runners decide to take today. And it looks like Mr. Mean Mustache gets the bird in town. There are a few routes where you can get that in a couple different places, and we're not going to see that today from Mr. Mean Mustache. Let's see what LaurieDeBeaver decides to do in Sand Kingdom. And already we see a lot of different choices that these runners are making to get up to the heights that they need Mario to get to. So the moon LaurieDeBeaver just got, usually you're supposed to kind of find it in the ground with the rumble, the HD rumble from the controllers, and it'll kind of direct you to where the spot it is. But because we already know where it is, we just go to the spot and get it. And it looks like LaurieDeBeaver is having some trouble with the ice pillar there. And you can see Laurie waiting for that bullet bill, kinda. It is a extremely long cycle compared to the other bills in this level. Well, we need that bullet bill to get over to the pillar, as we see Laurie's doing right now. And there is a way to kind of manipulate it and get to the moon that she collected before this one without killing it, so that you can capture it right after getting the moon. But unfortunately, that's not what we saw today. And Mr. Mean Mustache coming up to a pretty important trick here. We want to crash onto the wall at the correct spot so that he doesn't end up falling into the poison like he just did. And I decided not to talk there, just not so that he wouldn't be jinxed again. And Mr. Mean Mustache is coming up to the last couple of moons in the kingdom, where you get to take over a cactus. And let's see how Laurie does with the bullet bill trick on the wall. Mr. Mean Mustache coming up here on one of the more frustrating moons for somebody who's starting to speedrun this game. And he makes it look relatively easy, but it is pretty hard to kind of get your bearings on the tree and move Mario around. Yeah, his jumps are a little weird off of the leaves there. And with that last moon, Mr. Mean Mustache finishes up Sand Kingdom, and he's going to move on to Lake Kingdom now, where we get to capture a Cheep Cheep and do some pretty cool jumps as well. Laurie also finishing up Sand Kingdom in a moment here. And here's one of the cooler jumps in Lake Kingdom. And it looks like Mr. Mean Mustache makes it with no problem. And here we capture a zipper and kind of unzip the wall. And it does look like that death that Mr. Mean Mustache took earlier set him back a little bit on coins. So he just decided to pick up a couple there. And it looks like Mr. Mean Mustache is doing really well in this kingdom. You can kind of tell how well you're doing by what's part of the cycle that blue dory is in when you get to collecting that moon. And Mr. Mean Mustache coming up on the second cool jump in this kingdom. We're going to jump out of that Cheep Cheep after getting it to jump out of the water and go right up to the boss stage. And it looks like Laurie messes up getting up to the zipper moon. Let's see what... And it looks like she's just going to climb up. They're just going to climb up and go get it. Very good recovery from Laurie. Luna, I don't mind commentating by myself, and I don't mind commentating with a partner either. Either's fine. MrMeanMoustache just finishing up Lake Kingdom as Laurie enters the boss fight. And we see that we're using the fast strats on this boss, kind of a make a joke out of him. He can be a little hard on your first playthrough when you don't understand how to deal with it, but a couple of backflips make him really easy. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache was able to grab that rock no problem. Sometimes you can hit the rock with Cappy and kind of bounce it all over the place, which is a bit of a time loss when you have to go kind of chasing it to grab it. And another cool thing about that is when you pick up that rock and just walk into another rock, it'll break instantly. And LaurieDeBeaver just finishing up the Lake Kingdom, going into Wooded Kingdom next. By my estimate, I think that is about almost a 2-minute time difference. And we see the capture for the Wooded Kingdom here, the uproot. And what we do is use the motion controls to get him to stretch his legs faster. If you just use the buttons, it is a little slower. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache is going for the teleport route. There are 2 routes that you can take kind of in this kingdom. You can jump into the lake right after the nut on the high cliff that he grabbed before this nut, and go straight into the lake pipes from there. And we want to make sure that we don't miss this jump right here or you fall into the deep woods. But now he's jumping in lake pipes right now after grabbing that checkpoint, and he'll just warp out back to that checkpoint after he finishes this pipe room. And it doesn't look like MrMeanMoustache was able to get out of here without damage. Pretty hard, tricky thing to do. There are a few strategies that are able to get out of here without damage. They are very tight and hard to pull off as movements. And every time you take damage in this game and collect a moon, that is about a 2-second time loss for 1 piece of health missing, and 2.5 for 2 pieces of health missing. And that is in addition to taking the damage in the first place. And Laurie just entering the lake pipes here. Let's see what kind of movement they go for. And it looks like it started off looking like it was going for damageless, but they won't be able to make it after that. My favorite Brutal as a character is probably Rango, and my favorite Brutal to fight is Topper. And Laurie just coming up on a opportunity to do a pretty cool jump. We didn't see it from Mr. Mustache, but after getting the Piranha Plant Moon, you can do a triple jump either off of the platform that the P-switch is on or off of the railing to make it over to the island that the Flower Road goes to. It is a little bit quicker, but very risky because if you don't make it, it is a death. And it doesn't look like Laurie goes for the risky strat. And it looks like Laurie's having a little trouble with the uproot there. It is that that particular getting out of that section is a little hard. You have to walk him right to the edge and then use the motion controls to get him up to the right height without having his feet fall off of the edge so that he falls lower. And MrMeanMoustache just getting to the map where we get to choose Metro Kingdom, but are rudely interrupted in the air by Bowser on the way there. And Laurie just finishing up the fight in Wooded Kingdom. And it does look like MrMeanMoustache is going to go for a little safer strats in Bowser's first fight here, which is probably a smart move seeing that he's ahead. And MrMeanMoustache does move over to the left after hitting Bowser that second time, because if you don't, he will jump over to the opposite side of the ring, which does take a little bit more time. And moving to the left tells him to jump over to the opposite side of where we currently are, so then he will only jump over about 3 little moon platform thingies instead of going across the entire stage. And Laurie just entering the fight as MrMeanMoustache finishes it up. And MrMeanMoustache is going to move on to Lost Kingdom, where we do a pretty cool jump at the beginning in order to skip a trigger where Klepto the bird takes our hat and we have to go through some Super Mario Sunshine style platforming to get our movement options back. The only reason we wear the captain's hat in the speedrun is because it takes time to change our hat, and it's changed automatically when Cappy decides to become a captain's hat on our first flight. If you do want to see other outfits of Mario's in this game, the longer categories do actually get some moons that require wearing different outfits. And it looks like Laurie has no problem getting that triple jump off the tree. That's a very impressive jump to make. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache is going for the older Lost route, where we get this moon in this little rock prison. The newer route uses the one that you unlock by breaking the cage with the bomb bug. And we take an intentional death there so that we can warp back to the Odyssey and turn in our moons right away. It is possible to get out of that little crevice without dying, and it is a little faster if you do it flawlessly, but it is a little risky and a bit of time loss if you try to get out and end up bonking. And Laurie having a little bit of trouble with the moon and the rock stone there. And MrMeanMoustache is entering the Metro Kingdom right now, where we skip a large portion of the level with the first jump after getting this electric wire. And it looks like Laurie also goes for the older Lost route. And the back path that MrMeanMoustache is taking skips a huge portion of this Night Metro level, which is over a minute long at least. And he's coming up to one of the hardest parts of the speedrun. And it looks like Laurie took a death without collecting the last moon, which is... or not. Looks like they're going for a different moon here. I didn't catch it. And warping back to the Odyssey. And the room that MrMeanMoustache is in right now is one of the hardest rooms in the run. It's very input heavy and the movement is very hard. And the fixed camera angle doesn't help. And it looks like he does make a mistake, but is able to recover. And he's coming up on a little bit of a risky jump. We jump across the entire room to get to the exit door. And there's a little bit of a trick to that. If you try to aim Cappy with the control stick, you almost always fail because of the moving camera. So if you just let go of the control stick and go neutral, throw Cappy, and then do the dive, you will land onto Cappy without fail. And Laurie coming up on the first Metro skip jump as MrMeanMoustache is entering the fight for the Wiggler. This Wiggler fight is a potential kind of a huge deal of a time loss if they don't, if runners aren't able to get a 2-cycle of it. What you have to do is blow up all the orbs on Wiggler's body, and it's pretty hard to do with these flying projectiles coming at you in this second phase here. And there are a lot more orbs to blow up than the first time we shot at him. And Laurie coming up to the really hard metro interior of the skyscraper here. And it doesn't look like MrMeanMoustache was able to get to the 2-cycle, so he'll have to take that time loss. And it looks like he's having a little trouble getting that last orb there. And Laurie with a great recovery from being able to recognize that she won't make the dive up to the moon chest, and kind of just diving over to the pole to grab it. And MrMeanMoustache is just entering Day Metro as LaurieDeBeaver enters the Wiggler fight. There's a pretty cool trick you can go for here, and it looks like he's going for it. You throw Cappy, hold him with the Y button at that electric wire, and then do the homing attack with the motion controls so that Cappy goes to the electric wire and you take it over right after you collect that first moon in Day Metro. And it looks like he has no problem with the RC car. That can give runners a bit of a problem when they're not familiar with the controls. And even if you are familiar with the controls and you just happen to mess the movement up in a run, it can be a little bit hard to recover. And let's see if Laurie is able to get this 2-cycle on the Wiggler. And it's looking pretty good, and they're able to do it. So that'll be a little bit of a catch-up on their part. About 20 or 30 seconds worth, I think. And MrMoustache is gonna grab this moon inside this garbage can on top of this girder here, and then this one hanging over that girder there. I have no idea how they got that moon into the garbage up that high. There are some fast strats you can go for here, climbing up these kind of spires on top of this skyscraper. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache kind of went for it for a second, but then opted not to after kind of missing it. And on this next moon here that MrMeanMoustache is coming up to, he wants to activate the switch with Cappy and then start rolling on the right side of all this crowd of people so that we don't go bumping through all of them and can just kind of bypass that whole that whole area. And the camera angle is a little tight in here. Can be difficult to get used to getting a perfect movement in here. MrMeanMoustache starting Mario's conversation with Pauline, an old friend of Mario's from the arcade days. She needs musicians for her band for a festival she wants to put up that's kind of all about Mario, actually. But we only get two, the drummer and the bassist, and that's really all you need, so it's alright. And Laurie just coming up on a pretty cool moon here. The way we find this one is that there's a NPC dressed in black and an NPC dressed in white sitting at the cafe. If you draw two lines, where they cross is where the moon would be. And I missed it, but I'll get it the second time. MrMeanMoustache just finishing up Metro Kingdom. About to enter into either Seaside or Snow Kingdom. I didn't get a chance to look at his coin count. But it does look like he's going into Snow Kingdom first. You'll need 100 coins for the shop moon at the start of this. But if you do end up getting to Snow Kingdom without 100 coins, there are ways to kind of fix that. There are a couple of boxes in the lobby area of the town that you can break and then just exit and re-enter to kind of refresh the coins inside of them. And Laurie getting up to the last couple moons here. Wow, MrMeanMoustache visits one of my favorite characters in the franchise, Captain Toad. Hotep. And Captain Toad is one of my favorite characters. His backstory is really great to me. His whole thing is that he can't jump because his backpack is too heavy, and we find him in all sorts of places in this game where you'd think he wouldn't be able to reach without jumping. And yes, chat, there are plenty of ways for either of these runners to lose a bunch of time in the later kingdoms. This run does tend to get harder as it goes on. And it looks like Laurie goes to Seaside Kingdom first. And there are about 40 to 50 coins on this route that they'll be grabbing that can bring their coin count up to 100 from this 74. And this first jump for Laurie is a little bit tricky here. Let's see if they make it the first time. And it doesn't look like they'll be able to make it with that height. And Laurie having a little bit of trouble with this first jump, having to get it on the 4th try. MrMeanMoustache having no problem with one of the more dangerous rooms in Snow Kingdom. That last gust guy can blow Cappy away from you as you get to him, and potentially Mario as well, into the poison, and then you'd have to start the room from the start again. And MrMeanMoustache entering the Goomba room in Snow Kingdom. He has to stack these Goombas and step on the Goomba button with 4 of them stacked together. And right now he's coming up on a jump that always makes me very nervous when I'm running this game myself. And it doesn't look like he goes for it, he's going for the safer jump. But you can get a super long jump in from the earlier platform there. And it looks like Laurie is taking a bit of a different strat for this Notes Moon. Usually you take the flower, the rocket flower, and just run across the water with Mario. But if your aim is not very good, maybe a good idea to take one of these Gushions and go get the notes that way. Yes, yes, Java, that is very impressive. Every time that it doesn't look like they'll make the jump, they've been able to catch it before they actually do the final dive and miss the ledge and bonk, avoiding the time loss from bonking there. And it looks like Laurie is not doing the boost strats for the fish. That has actually been found to not be any faster over a long distance. And MrMeanMoustache just finishing up Snow Kingdom and getting into Seaside Kingdom here. We'll see how he does with this first jump. And it looks like Laurie's having a little bit of trouble finding the entrance to this little cave here for this moon. And MrMeanMoustache doesn't have any trouble with the first jump, saving a little bit of time over Laurie's first jump in Seaside. And Laurie just finishing up Seaside, about to go into Snow Kingdom. The Great Sir Nico. The Japanese version currently saves, I believe, 11 seconds over English. Is it more than that? I guess it's more than that then, about 15 to 17. And Mr. Mean Mustache coming up to the cheap capture. Looks like he's doing the boosts. And we see that in this tight space, Mr. Mean Mustache is bonking a little with the fish, what I like to call a fish bonk. And that is because they are boosting. If you do not boost, you don't have the possibility of even fish bonking at all. Mr. Mean Mustache taking a bit of damage there, gonna cost him 2 seconds. And as Mr. Mean Mustache finishes up Seaside Kingdom and is about to enter Luncheon Kingdom, now's a good chance to tell you guys that if you guys have missed any of these Super Mario Odyssey any percent tournament races and want to go check those out, the ones that you missed, they will be uploaded to YouTube soon. Yes, it seems like if I'm commentating, there is a high chance for disconnect so far, statistically. And Mr. Mean Mustache just did that cool little jump there. I missed commentating on it a little bit, but it is that first jump in Luncheon is pretty hard to get and master as learning to run this game for the first time. And here in Luncheon Kingdom, we get to fight Speward again. And looks like Mr. Mean Mustache makes a little bit of a mistake there. And it is pretty hard to get on top of Speward in his hat while he's zooming around the battlefield like this. And as Luna Kazuto is pointing out in chat right now, there is a bit of a choice that Mr. Mean Mustache can make. He can choose to go to a secret cap. He can choose to either go to a cap room with a fork kind of mechanic in it, and the other choice he can make is to go to a cap room where Mario takes control of Fireball and has to kind of maneuver his way through a treacherous layout. Very impressive looking spin jump strat from Mr. Mean Mustache to get up those mountains. And the next moon Mr. Mustache will reveal, he's probably going to stand on the edge of this building over here, throw Cappy out, and do a homing attack just like that. And for this next moon, we throw golden turnip into the stew, and there's a bit of an odd audio cue for that one, for when the moon cutscene is about to trigger. It is the last little note of that cooking sound. Personally, I find forks a little harder, but at first I did think Magma was harder just because I wasn't used to the Photobo controls. And it looks like Mr. Mean Mustache is going for forks. Forks room has, I believe, has been found to be faster by maybe a few seconds, I think. And I don't know the strategy that Mr. Mean Mustache is going for here. It looks like he's going for a damage boost over the lava, but doesn't quite make it. And as Goron Jackson is pointing out here in chat, choosing forks over magma or magma over forks changes some of the movement that we take in the kingdom after we get this next story moon here that Mr. Mean Mustache is coming up on. A lot of alliteration in these names here. I do agree that the movement when you take forks coming out of the torch moon that is right after the story moon is a lot more impressive looking. I find it a little harder to do though. And we will see it here, and we'll see if Mr. Mean Mustache goes for it. After getting this moon, he's probably going to throw Cappy, dive over to Cappy so he can get a spin jump over that huge gap over there to start a triple jump. And it doesn't look like he's going to go for that. Right here, Mr. Mean Mustache is coming up to the final 3 moons of this kingdom. All you have to do is do a single jump and jump onto Cappy and dive onto that little cheese block, I think it is, to get that moon. And Mr. Mean Mustache has just finished Luncheon Kingdom and is going to enter into one of the most surprising things I've ever seen in a Mario game. And already we see in this first area of this kingdom, it is a huge contrast from the kind of art direction the rest of the game has taken and the rest of the Mario universe has opted for in the past. And here we see the first boss fight of Dark Souls for the big dragon with the lightning rod. And to beat this guy, we do ground pounds on his head. I have no idea why his head glows like that. You should probably get that checked out. And Mr. Mean Mustache tries to jump onto the dragon a little early and get the damage boost so he can start getting at those swords a little bit earlier, but wasn't able to do it on that cycle, unfortunately. And Mr. Mean Mustache finishes up that fight, no problem. How many times am I gonna screw up his name? And after this kingdom, we're gonna move into Bowser's Kingdom, one of my favorite kingdoms with my favorite music in the game, both in the last section of Bowser's Kingdom and also in the boss fight for Bowser's Kingdom. And it looks like Mr. Mean Mustache gives us a bit of a slower skip there. The movement here is pretty straightforward for the first part of this level here. And he does climb up that roof with the bird. You can get up there without the bird, but I'm not sure if it's really that faster. Here we are coming up to our first little mini boss. in Bowser's Kingdom. Just got a ground pound on that guy's head. And after grabbing those 2 crests, it looks like MrMeanMoustache is going to go for the strat with the bird here and jump over this roof to grab the 4th crest. That is a bit of a time save to do that, because usually you would just walk around the back and kind of go that whole way to go get that last crest. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache kind of fumbles with the getting that Pokeo's beacon to that little hole there. And that was a cool little jump from MrMeanMoustache. I personally have a lot of trouble with it, so I don't do it. And he's just closing in on the fight with the Brutals here. We'll get to fight Topper again, and also Harriet for the first time, I believe. And it looks like he misses the fast Kale on Topper. You're able to jump on him while he's inside of his hat. Next up is Harriet, or Bomb Bunny as I like to call her. She throws bombs at you. And she does throw, in this fight, 2 bombs. So you have to kind of set up an angle to get it to go back to her. There are a few different strategies for taking her on. You can have her back up and then back up yourself to have her throw the bombs a little faster. After MrMeanMoustache grabs this last story moon in Bowser's Kingdom, we are going to move on to the last section of the kingdom, which has a pretty difficult movement. MrMeanMoustache is going to do a triple jump. up there and makes it no problem, not even needing the extra cap throw against the wall for the height. Expertly dodging those bombs there. You can run into them if you're not careful. And he's going to grab this Pokio, do a jump over this corner, and then use the motion controls to get a little extra height with that spin thing. And right now we're coming up on one of the scariest parts of the speedrun, and one of the most frustrating if you do get here on a good pace and end up messing it up. The Mecha Brutal fight. Some people like to call this the Wooden Gundam. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache is going for the birdless strat, starting with the yellow bunny, something I've never seen personally. And looks like he's not able to get up onto that mech the second time after being pushed away by it. And this is one of the worst phases to be on the ground, kind of, because he does close his legs off after you. And it looks like he's going to have to go through another cycle of it. He does close those little leg vents off, and you're not able to climb for a good amount of time. And MrMeanMoustache is able to get up onto the mech after defeating the second bunny inside the mech bubble. And it looks like he's going for Harriet before he goes for Topper. And it looks like he misses Topper. It is a little harder to aim for those side brutals while the mech is moving. And with that last ground pound, the Mecha Brutal is finished. And right now we're grabbing the last 3 moons in Bowser's Kingdom, and we're gonna move on to the Moon Kingdom, where there's a pretty big skip. Usually you would go into the Moon Kingdom and there's a little cliff with a cave at the bottom. You would enter that cave and enter into a very final level, kind of level, with lava and lots of dry bones and enemies. And it takes more than a few minutes to finish, even if you're speedrunning it. But we just bypass all that by doing a couple of wall jumps. And Mario just entering the Moon Kingdom here, it is a little bit of a change to the sequence order here. Usually you get um, usually you get just 2 cutscenes, and then Cappy talks to you in the Odyssey, and then you get a couple more cutscenes. But I think it's just 3 cutscenes in a row here, and then Cappy talks to you, and you're off. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache takes some damage from these little rolling rocks here. And he's going for the 1 flower strat. You can actually get the 2nd flower over to the left there, and then take that flower all the way back to the Sphinx here, which we use to make the moon skip possible. We do a ground pound here, wait for Mario to get to max height, then jump off of this small section of the wall, and jumping off of that section of the wall will allow us to do another wall jump on a section of the wall right next to it that's not parallel to it. Just a little bit of an oversight on the developer's part. And this last Bowser fight in the Moon Kingdom is about the same as our first Bowser fight. The only difference being he throws a little bit more hats out and does this little fire cycle in between. And MrMeanMoustache finishes up the Bowser fight. And here we just kind of mash A and B, because you have to kind of do that jump up thing with Mario again. But just mashing there kind of skips it a little bit. And this is the final part of the game, the escape sequence from the moon. We get to take control of Bowser and platform our way through this crumbling kind of interior of the moon. And it doesn't look like MrMeanMoustache gets the triple jump there. Right in this 2D section that we're coming up on, there is a little bit of a shortcut that's possible. And we'll see if MrMeanMoustache goes for it. And it looks like he might have been planning to go for it, but just misses it. And dying here is pretty risky, because it does start you all the way at the beginning of when you took control of Bowser. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache is able to get that triple jump in the second time around. And it looks like he's going to go for the 2D skip, but just barely misses it. And has to start all the way from the beginning of the Bowser section again. And it doesn't look like it's a good day for MrMeanMoustache and the 2D skip. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache takes yet another death. Quite a bit of a time loss in this escape section. And since we do have a bit of time here, I'm just gonna remind you guys that it is always a good idea, if you are into this kind of speedrunning thing, to follow the Speed Gaming channel and the other Speed Gaming channels as well. There are 4 of them: Speed Gaming 2, 3, and 4. And although Laurie wasn't able to be here with us for a bit of the race, I'm sure she would appreciate that follow, as would MrMeanMoustache and myself would. This section of the run is pretty straightforward. All you gotta do is break these pillars and move on to the center. There is a bit of a strategy where you throw fireballs out to the pillar on the right and then work your way a little bit backwards and then throw a final fireball as you move to the center, which saves a little bit of time. And MrMeanMoustache is going to get the 12 hits onto this moon rock and finally enter that electric pylon and get out of here and finish this run with a time of 1:20.56 on his timer. if you're still hungry for more Super Mario Odyssey any percent races, we do have a bunch coming up tomorrow, Saturday, December 9th. There are 2 at 1 p.m. Also, 3 at 2 p.m. happening, and 2 happening at 4 p.m., and 2 more happening at 6 p.m., 1 more at 8 p.m., and these are all in Eastern Standard Time. And in addition to that, the previous races will be uploaded to YouTube soon, as I've been told. Again, make sure to follow the Speed Gaming channels for more speed gaming and Super Mario Odyssey. We also do a lot of other speed games as well. And it looks like MrMeanMoustache is going to be joining us here for an interview in a moment.
Gonna start.
Cool, and here's Mr. Mean Mustache himself with an interview for us. How did you feel about that? Those little mistakes at the end there costing a huge bit of time.
What? Mistakes? Where? I didn't saw them. No, it was, I was just trying to go for 2D skip. And yeah, I thought, okay, we'll just try it again. And it did not really want to work out with me. Normally, I'm pretty consistent with it. But, and the third time I thought, yeah, okay, then we do not do 2D skip. But then, yeah, I missed another jump and we fell down again. So yeah, it was a great moon. But besides that, I'm happy of the run after all. It was not a bad run in general. Just moon was a bit unfortunate that it happened like this.
Yeah, certainly not a bad run. Just over 120, even with all that time lost in Moon Kingdom. Still very impressive. Would have been sub 120. Just curious, how much have you been practicing personally for these races in this tournament?
It's quite hard to like get everything scheduled out properly because I have to deal with work. I'm also in the Super Mario 64 70 Star tournament. Upcoming next week also on Speed Game is the Quirk tournament that's coming up. Since I brought that game to the leaderboards, I have to apply to that as well, of course. So I'm a bit busy with all the games. So yeah, today I started actually doing a no reset run and it ended out to be a PB, so that was quite nice. But that was the only practice I had as well the last week.
Oh, that's quite surprising. Very hard to. It's a very great level of consistency that you've shown. With, even with the amount of practice that you haven't been able to get in.
No, exactly. It's what I said. I was more focused on myself 64 because when this game came out, I was distracted by this game for a month. Then the tournament came and I focused on myself 64, and I didn't really practice for this match yet. It was I was still not that rusty. Like I didn't play for a week maybe. But yeah, I was surprised about how it turned out today in my consistency indeed.
Cool. I don't know if you had your splits up for each kingdom, but what do you think were the best parts of your run?
I think my loss was pretty good. Sandham was good, just unfortunate that I missed Jaxie skip. And I was happy with Nitro Kingdom as well. Oh, and Snow was pretty good. Those were the parts where I was most happy with, and I was okay. That at least didn't go wrong.
Yeah, it seems like you were able to make most of the major jumps without any problems.
Yeah.
To finish off this kind of interview, just what kind of advice do you have for any new runners getting into the Super Mario Odyssey, kind of any percent or any other category, kind of?
Communicate with the community and learn the insides and outsides of the game. That's always what helped me with every game. The community knows in first place most likely more than you, so they're always able to help you out as well. So just join their Discord and ask questions if you just don't know. And that's basically what helped me through speedrunning all the time as well.
Cool. Thank you very much, MrMeanMoustache.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful run from you.
And everyone, thanks for watching.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure MrMeanMoustache would appreciate a follow from any of you viewers at home, as would I, and Laurie as well.
I think we all appreciate a follow indeed. That is true. But no, what I said, thanks everyone. Thanks for commentating. It was great commentary, I have to be honest there.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna sleep.
Cool. See you later, Mr. Mean.
See you later.
Coming in for
Bye,
the
Jet.
interview. And again, if you're hungry for more speed gaming, make sure to follow the speed gaming channels, all 4 of them, and make sure to give the runners a follow. They would definitely appreciate it. And there will be plenty more Super Mario Odyssey in this month, and even coming in January for the bracket stages, as the group stages will be ending in December. Thank you for watching, everybody.